right, so thoughts on that last game?
Interesting game, honestly. I don't think you or I predicted that it would go the way it went, right? Because CKIO is a very typical lineup that we see a lot, and it's always sort of either the CKIO sort of dominate the map and they keep finding out kills and they destroy them, or they're sort of forced to not be able to get kills because the other team clumps up and they get pressured and they fall down and people push in. Neither of those things happened. So RoX did group up. They sort of got into the defensive sort of turtle shell posture and sort of pushed through. But on the flip side, Dignitas was like, okay, I mean, whatever, we'll take team fights. And I think with great execution from both Snake King's Puck and really Aoi and Way Too Sexy dealing the damage and focusing very well on the Nature's Prophet and the Chaos Knight, they just managed to bring down RoX again and again. One of the problems, and we're going to look to this in RoX's lineup this time, is they were a little more level dependent. Like a Warlock, very, very level dependent hero. Hitting those ult ranks is actually a really big deal. Undying, honestly, the higher he hits, the better he is as well. And so I feel like they got into a clump of fives before they were actually ready. And so they kept taking situations in which they weren't quite advantaged enough.
Do you think that kind of shows control from the enemy team, or just more so them kind of not being as coordinated as they would intend to be?
I think a little of both, probably, Blaze. Like, on the one hand, I don't think RoX played that bad of a game. They made a very, very, very questionable decision late that we both talked about. But other than that, I think they played well. It's just Dignitas played they had a little bit of more individual play that really carried them.
Yeah, and nicely done on their account. Of course, taking it now into Game 2, they have a 1-0 advantage, and they're going to try to close out this series as swiftly as possible, but RoX.KIS going to be trying to answer back with the equalizer here, and they already have a strong draft to kind of bring them in that direction. The Darkseer was instrumental in a lot of the different teamfight action, and although I'm not sure if they'll follow up with a similar draft of the Gyro and the Warlock, as it didn't seem to pan out the way they intended, they could still be... The Darkseer is one of those heroes that you can build so many different compositions around. He is very versatile, has a lot of control, and has a lot of different ways that he can make things work. So you could go with some like a Magnus or an Enigma. Oh my gosh, I haven't seen a black hole in forever. But yeah, I mean, you can do some cool stuff like that, or you could just get a lot of single target damage on top of the Darkseer and just pull them out into a bad position and with huge amounts of right click damage through the wall of replica. So just kind of physically overwhelm them, or kind of go for that wombo combo type style. Either way, a lot of potential, and of course he's very survivable. But Team Dignitas answering back by drafting up a dual core lineup, Lone Druid and Lifestealer. A lot of potential, especially if the Entangle procs come on through, for both of them to deal a heck of a lot of damage. And that could be something that Gyrocopter has to deal with. I mean, that's obviously, we saw how squishy he was last time around, and although I think that Biz has built him very effectively and can farm with him very nicely, if he is not very survivable and doesn't have like a force staff or something like that from his allies to keep him in a good position, it's going to be difficult for him to actually do what he wants to. He was very, very, even with the BKB, I would say he was very well controlled and shut down in the previous match. And I guess the Shadow Demon will help out a little bit. Defensive disruptions are nice for that, but
they're against Lifestealer.
Yeah, true.
I'm not surprised that they took the Gyro again, honestly. I think all that extra time was a couple of decisions. It was, do we just do the same lineup, or will that fall again? Because not having the IO in is actually a pretty substantial difference, but you can't leave Shadow Demon and Magnus on the table after that, really. Especially Shadow Demon, so I actually like that they took that and not the Magnus. But this does give Dignitas even more sort of power to sort of just dictate the pace of the game with that Magnus. And RoX are going to have to pick a mid after these next 3 picks that can actually stand up to the Magnus. They do have the option of the Darkseer, but it's kind of eh. They want to be able to bully the Magnus, and there's 3 bans for Dignitas to take that opportunity away from them. But just in terms of the Gyrocopter, RoX are very standard in terms of which carries they run. They sort of just run the best carries. We're not talking about a Loda team or a Black team here where it's like, oh, well, whatever, I'll just go PA or Alchemist or something. They almost always in RoX, we see Business Perfect on either the Lifestealer or the Gyrocopter. So when there's no Lifestealer on the board, you can bet the Gyrocopter is going to come soon after. And this is a good hero. He's good on it. It's great in concert with the Darkseer, as you mentioned. And I think Lifetime, its win rate against Lifestealer is actually pretty decent. He does have that slow, he can kite Lifestealer out a little bit. The problem is, of course, Lone Druid adds a little more pressure onto that.
Yeah, that'll be definitely changing the way the team fights work out and how they break things down here. But what do you think is going to be a good ban of this situation? Right now, ROX has kind of rounded out their lanes nicely. They have a Darkseer off lane, they have the support, and then the Gyrocopter is flexible. I have only seen RoX run him as a carry, but obviously we know from other compositions and other teams that he can, of course, run in a mid scenario. He's pretty solid 1v1 there as well. So right now, it's kind of difficult to ban against them. They have some control with their composition, but they ban out the Puck. Do you think that's appropriate? And what else should they be looking to take off the board?
I mean, Puck, honestly, he can go in the solo lane just as easily as he can... I don't know what I think about the Puck ban. Obviously, snaking... You want to take out mid. Sorry, I actually thought for 1 second that Puck was banned by RoX and not by Dignitas. Okay. I love the ban of Puck by Dignitas, actually. He's amazing against Magnus. He bullies him in the lane. He can silence him and dream coil him to make sure that the RP is very hard to hit. It would actually be very, very difficult. And, as I said, Dignitas want to ban mids. Yeah. So I like that they banned Puck, who's a strong mid, and he's very strong against Magnus. Warlock, honestly, it's just to prevent the sort of same thing. I think Dignitas realized that it's going to be harder to prevent the Warlock from leveling this game than it was last game, and so he's actually more of a danger, and he was already a substantial danger.
Yeah. Yeah, I think at this position here, you're looking at it and it's like, okay, well, we have a couple different options. We can ban supports, but there is an innumerable amount of supports that work well with Shadow Demon. You have like at least 6 good supports that can just easily be thrown on in there, work well with Shadow Demon and Gyrocopter, and dish out a ton of damage on a tri-lane. So it's difficult to draft in that sense as well, in the sense of a carry. If you ban out all the great carriers and they're just going to say, okay, we'll just put Gyro on there and draft up a mid. So in this situation, the one thing that they definitely will be most likely looking towards is a solo mid hero. They do ban out the Alchemist just to make sure, but I definitely think taking out the Warlock and Puck are both very, very solid bans, and I would say primarily because of the fact that they want good RPs, and Magnus has a very difficult time up against a Puck. Dream Coil and Phase Shift, all those lock him down, and the Golem in general, like he said, he's going to have a lot of experience to work with, and it's going to be very, very devastating for heroes like Lifestealer who get disabled during it, and Magnus who just wants to get into a good position.
Definitely. Although I don't like the implication you made there, Blaze, that Alchemist isn't a solo mid hero. I don't know what you're talking about. Alchemist is too a solo mid hero. More often, to be serious about my joke for a second, if you do run Alchemist mid, it's usually on Radiant, because then you can sort of have mid pulls to make the situation a little better. But they would never do it on Dire, I don't think. It's tough. I like the Lesh pick. This does make their tri-lane extremely scary.
Ooh,
and Omni.
Whoa, that is something there.
So I've had Omni near and dear to my heart for a little while now, and this is not the situation that I anticipated him. I actually was thinking about him as a pocket pick that teams could deploy against Gyrocopter, because his W and R are both extremely strong relative to Gyro's strengths. Omni's an interesting hero. Actually, let's talk about mid real quick. What does this actually look like in terms of lanes from RoX, Blaze?
It's difficult because they have a lot of different things that they could do, but I doubt. They're not going to be running like a Shadow Demon Last Track dual mid. That's not really feasible. So I could see a super powerful tri-lane of Gyrocopter, Shadow Demon, and Last Track. If they go aggressive with that, Omni Knight can solo a safe lane, which would be nice. Otherwise, pretty much, essentially, they're going to have Darkseer or Omni Knight in the mid. That's almost guaranteed in this circumstance. So it's just
Darkseer mid, I guess.
Yeah.
And then Omni solo safe. It's just dangerous. I feel like they can put a really good solo safe hero against you.
Yeah, but one cool thing is they already picked up the Shadow Demon, so you don't have to worry about the Demonic Purge here. There's a lot of different things off the board, and in general, the lanes are going to get weird, but after they break out of the laning phase, which I think will be really early on, maybe 6 minutes in, they're going to start being able to push really nicely. Get 2 Arcane Boots on the field, and you can go for a Shadow Poison build on Shadow Demon for sustained harassment. You can go for Edict on the Last Track, Omni Knight heals, and you have Iron Shell as well as Flat Cannon. You just dish out a lot of damage, and you can go for kind of a little bit of gimmick push type stuff. It will be a little difficult if the Lone Druid takes it upon himself to just battle cry down towers on the opposite side of the map, but in general, I still think if they put pressure out early, Magnus isn't going to find his window of opportunity to really shine with a Blink Dagger and higher ranks of RP, and same thing with the Lifesteal and Lone Druid, since they're so farm reliant.
Oh my god, is this the... Are Dignitas running 2-1-2? Is that what's gonna happen in a second here?
I mean, it's still feasible. I mean, it's definitely something we don't really talk about, but
I mean, well, it's something we don't really talk about, Blaze, because it's usually not very good.
Yeah.
The problem with the 2-1-2 here, if they decide to run it, which I still am not quite believing they will, I think it's more likely they'll run like 3-1 and 1 in the jungle, maybe? I don't know, honestly. I don't want to make a solid prediction about these lanes, because I really have no idea how it's actually going to pan out. But just quickly, the reason why you don't see 2-1-2s in pro games, but you see them all the time in pub, is what happens is you lose the 3 versus 2. Like, the lane in which you have 2 and they have 3, they almost certainly win. And you never win the 2v1 lane as much as you'd like. That's basically the oversimplified thing of it. So
Yeah.
it doesn't give you an advantage in any lanes. It just sort of gives you a marginal advantage in one and a big disadvantage in the other. So that's why teams don't usually do it, but there are specified circumstances. Actually, trouble for the bear here. I don't think they have enough
It's going to take
damage
about half.
to bring it down.
Yeah, it's going to maybe lose about half its HP. It will be a little bit painful, but, you know, that cooldown's been rolling for a while, and Lone Druid will have that back up in a little bit. But yeah, they're going to, looks like they're going to send AUI up top, Snake King on the mid. Fog will be roaming around. He might be looking for mid pulls, but right now they don't have a single tree cut down. There was no early skewer from the Magnus, so he didn't actually go for that at all. And in this position here, it does look like that...
Solo mid Omni. Or dual mid 2-2-1, which I like better from RoX. Like, Lesh to sort of hit the split oaths every so often. God, I don't know. Just as I say that, Lesh rotates back. So maybe Darkseer in the jungle, 3 top, and then the Omni mid. Honestly, Omni against Magnus is not that bad of a situation. You'll cop some damage, but yeah, you can do what he's doing, which is try to pressure him with the heal.
Yeah.
God, Omni Knight. What role do you see Omni Knight playing in this game, Blaze?
Pretty much, like, I was talking about reinforced push, a lot of heal over time. If he has mana to work with here, he's not going to be, like, carrying anything, but all he needs to do is set up gyrocopters to survive. They only... Oh, no, I was about to say they only have one magic immunity piercing disabled, but they do have both Fiend's Grip and RP, so the repel's only going to do so much. It kind of puts them in a position where they just want the fight to go as long as possible. Shadow Poison, Shadow Demon, and a Leshrac both are great when they can just survive. They can do more and more damage as the fight goes on by, and same thing with Cannon, Gyrocopter, if he can get to that second Flat Cannon cooldown. So I think really he's kind of playing a little bit like a Trent. He's playing in the sense that he wants to make things go longer, take longer and longer in the middle of a fight, so that the longer the fight goes on, the more advantage they're going to have up against Dignitas.
Yeah. Sorry, I wasn't actually laughing at you. I just love that Trian is the thing that we can seriously discuss now. And I like that you brought it up like 3 times already today. Like, no, absolutely, Trian is super real, and I love him, and I'm glad he's like a thing now. I think... Ooh, did we totally miss the first one?
It was a really weird position, so, yeah, it's a little bit awkward, but pretty much...
Wait, what? Was he trying to kill the crow?
I believe that might be the case. Yeah, he popped off a disruption, but like really nothing. There was nothing but a good pick off by Dignitas. They were able to find him out of position. They had a good observer ward, and honestly, I didn't even get the exact corpse position because he respawned so quickly. But I think it was in this general area. And
he was going for the crow, which is. The thing about Magnus is that he's incredibly, completely, totally dependent upon the... Actually, trouble for solo, I think, maybe. Oh, maybe not. They're going to wait, they're going to rotate these 2 guys up, and they're going to see if they can kill the Omni. But he's got Repel, so it depends. It's going to... Yeah, they won't do it. Snaking pops out the invis. If you can kill a crow, Omni becomes such a... Sorry, Magnus becomes such a horrible mid in every way. Like, he goes from being a good mid to a really, really bad mid as soon as the courier is out of the picture. Yeah. So that's why I think Vanscore was going for it, but I didn't notice him doing it, and apparently Dignitas did, so... Yeah. My bad, but... kind of not that consequential of a death, actually.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the biggest deal in the world, but the first blood does go to Magnus, which sets him up nicely with boots as well as bottle. So he's doing some bottle crow action, but he already has the boots of speed and can contest that 4-minute rune very directly, even if he's up against Degen Aura. Now we do see that Omni Knight's not opting for that whatsoever. He's going for double repel. And
I don't know about that.
I mean, there's a couple different things. You were talking about how Crow lack of Crow makes Magnus useless. Well, lack of being able to do any magic type abilities is also going to be a limiting factor. He can't get the skewer off appropriately. His shockwaves don't do damage. He's not useless against it because of the RP and the Empower, but it's just something that like it reduces his utility substantially in an engagement. And for that reason, I think that Bane has to be involved if they're going to be able to get any kills.
Yeah, I'm feeling that a lot now that I think about it, because if you get that full 12-second repel at max rank off, and put it on Gyrocopter, like, he worries so little about the Magnus during that time. Like, even if he gets RP'd, he's not going to take damage from it. It'll just stun him. But he definitely won't be skewered. He won't be shockwaved. There won't be any Jakiro damage coming out. There won't be any Bane damage coming out. So definitely the full repel as early as possible is going to be very useful, specifically for that.
Yeah.
So I do like that. I would have liked DJ Nora too, just because I think DJ Nora is just a tiny bit underrated. But I do like what he's doing here.
Yeah.
And how he's stealing the rune here is very good for them too, honestly.
It doesn't benefit him. He did have a damage over time from the neutral creeps, but either way, we do see a lot of aggression up top, pushing past the tower here. They have that Basilius, they have Edict at rank 2, and they're raring to go to bring this down very, very quickly. They have a siege creep battering away as well, and yeah, they're going to go for it fully. They're going to take up a few hits here and there, but I think with the fortification down, that they're perfectly willing to sustain that damage, to get that early pick off and see the gold advantage just completely go back in their favor. So that's really, really nice for them. And I think it's something that they need to keep on doing, because right now their biggest advantage is the fact that when Solo hits like level 8 or 9, he's going to have a full BKB and then some for the gyrocopter. That's in a situation where gyrocopter is moving towards BKB, you generally don't like push or be aggressive until it's finished. You're like, wait guys, I'm just going to farm a little bit more, finish that out. But if you have that like 7 minutes in, then, you know, go for it. Go for towers, go for aggression as 5v5.
Yeah.
And Dignitas doesn't have much of an answer, especially since Lifestealer went for the Midas.
Right. I actually think they might go for, like, dual Midas. They might go for one on the Lone Druid as well. And I was kind of skeptical of the whole early push from RoX when you mentioned it, but I think I was incorrectly skeptical, because they are going Edict primary on the Lesh, which these days you see Leshes much more often going for Q and E, but when they do go W, it's because they have this heavy pushing intent. So I think you're right. It's a good point about the gyrocopter. He doesn't have to spend that 3,900 right away for the BKB. He can very comfortably just go for that Yasha, get the Manta Style, get whatever he wants on top of that, and know that whenever he wants, he has a 12-second BKB that doesn't degrade at all, and that's quite good for him.
Exactly, and so that allows them to be much more active throughout the thing. And again, the one thing I was mentioning is the one limiting factor is they're going to need Arcane Boots. They're going to need a lot of mana to work with here. Right now, can't even discuss Shadow Demon's skill build because he's only sitting at level 2, but I'm assuming that he's going to be as mana reliant as the Omni, as the Leshrac, and that's something that they're going to have to deal with more directly. Dignitas is trying to change the pace of things a little bit here. They've only gotten a first blood, and although that's great, they want to get a lot more before they start breaking out. They start off with the RP. If they can go for a follow-up, they have too much damage to stuns and everything is going to be able to finish it off nicely. They really needed to time those and put pretty much everything on the table, so they're not at all concerned about Jakiro taking the last hit there. They're like, just dump everything on him, because if he gets a heal off, he follows it up with maybe a Guardian Angel or a Repel. Suddenly, everything you did is accomplished there in the mid lane is undone entirely, and he just walks away.
I mean, the RP use was smart from Snaking. Without the RP, you can't really prevent him from repelling and just walking away. So they sort of have to blow the RP to make sure that they can solo kill this Omni. Otherwise, he just walks away, no problem. So good play from Dignitas. A lot of damage actually thrown on Yul, but the thing about having a low health pool is sure you take a lot of damage, but it's also very easy for somebody to heal you.
Yeah, just throws it right back on up there. But I think the timing of the RP is something that a lot of people would underrate. But they were concerned about Dire having ward vision. They actually have some good observer right here. They can see at least to this position on the high ground. So this is actually setting them up where if the RP was a little bit later, Onion Knight could have followed up and maybe a repel or bring top himself off before all that came on through, and that would have been really, really good for solo. So the timing of the RP, making sure they did it before the supports got too close, really made it so they could get that kill and lock it down for a 2-0 right now in this stage, even though they are missing a tower.
Yeah, I like Dignitas' position here. They're getting plenty of farm up on Universe. Obviously, he's used that Midas really scot-free, hasn't had to leave this lane or do much of anything other than just simply last hit. I think both teams are actually feeling okay about their position. Darkseer, of course, has had a decent time in the jungle. He's actually well on the way to Mechanism. He's about a little less than halfway, but I think that's what RoX are waiting for. When that Mechanism hits the deck, they'll probably start seeking to take some more towers, because they can't let this go, like, forever. Lone Druid's Midas is done. He just used it for either, I think, the first or maybe the second activation. But, so yeah, I mean, Dignitas are going to be very, very big at some point, and the Lone Druid is going to be generating a ton of split-pushing pressure. So if RoX want to push anything, they really have to do it before the Lone Druid is so big that he can effectively counter-push.
Yeah, Lone Druid just now picking up his Midas, so a little bit behind compared to what he'd be preferring, but they're doing fine in general across the board. We do have a Fiend's Grip on the Bane, so Yol is going to be in a terrible spot. The Rage nullifying that splitter. They actually go and focus down on Shadow Demon. Universe TPing out. They disengage. They see all this rotation from RoX.KIS, and they're like, we cannot handle this. They're just going to throw out, actually, a completely whiff Shockwave. Now, big heal on the way, too. He's going to drop down, and they're going to look for more, look for Fog, and with that stun on cooldown, it might be relatively easy for them to bring him down. The Surge and that heal available, that is going to be a quick, easy kill for the Jakiro. Trying to survive, even dropping a sentry, but they really can't do it. Now Snaking is locked down as well. Tries to get that RP off, but that would have been a desperation at best. And instead they all get dropped down there. Just really, really good for RoX.KIS in this scenario here. And it's really about their retaliation, their immediate response. They just went and TP the towers insanely quickly. And although Universe was able to get out with a quick rage TP, all the support's not so fortunate.
Right. Honestly, good rotation from RoX. I don't know about that Dignitas rotation. I mean, I think they thought definitely the tower will go down, and that'll let us push as far up as we want. Maybe they weren't anticipating RoX to TP literally every person on their team over, because that's what they did, but it works out great for RoX.KIS, and the problem also was Snaking. He's not anywhere near his blink. He's still about a K off, and he doesn't have a TP, and even if he had a TP, he'd have to walk all the way up from here. And so Dignitas could have made something happen if they had the RP, but by the time they already had people dying and running away, Snaking was only like up to the stairs here. So like he couldn't find a good spot to RP. It's not that he like flubbed it, it's that he didn't know when to cast it to actually hit more than one person and actually let them follow up on it. And consequently, he ends up never casting it, which you never feel good about, but I mean, you do keep the cooldown, you wouldn't have gotten kills and whatever.
Yeah. I gotta mention one thing about the Ice Path that came on out. It was relatively inconsequential. The timing of it, still, the Bane was gonna die because of the HP, the Ion Chill, the positioning. So dropping down the Ion Chill then, or sorry, the Ice Path then, instead of maybe on the juncture point with the cliff, where the stairs go up towards the Dire Ancient Caps. That kind of positioning is generally going to be a better choke point to try to get a stun on out, but they were under a lot of pressure, and they do have a little bit of a ping disadvantage here, so a couple of those factors may play on into the scenario that kind of worked itself out, where the Darkseer was able to follow up continuously and using the rank 2 surge very effectively to stay on target.
Right. So, how do you feel RoX.KIS, where are RoX.KIS positioned in this game? Like, do you think that they have sort of an advantage? Do they feel good? Are we going to see them push sooner rather than later? Or do they have to still play very, very carefully and make sure the gyro hits like Yasha or something?
As long as they maintain their objectives throughout the next couple of engagements, I think that they're in a great spot. The mechanism will be coming up for the Darkseer in about 700 gold, so that's a little bit of a big objective, but once they get that, they are golden. The drum is out on the gyrocopter, nice aura for everyone. They have the Leshrac running right now rank 2 Edict, so he's kind of spreading his spells rather thin, but as soon as he gets Arcanes, I guess he will be able to sustain that pretty well. Either way, the main thing to look at is Solo's position. He has his Arcane Boots with the Basilius and Buckler. He's sitting at 10 armor, so they're gonna have a hard time bringing Solo down, and if Solo lives, everybody lives. He is set up so that because there's no silences, because there's no Waning Rift or Crippling Fear or anything that just can come out and Burger PC, really?
Burger PC.
Really? Wow.
I like it.
Okay then.
Burger PC.
Awesome. But train of thought, coming back on into it. Yeah, he's pretty tanky. He has with the Buckler active, he has a physical damage mitigation of 37%. That's a big effective HP boost. It sets him up to a point where the only thing he really has to worry about is a Fiend's Grip or a Reverse Polarity locking him down and everybody focusing him during that timing window. There's obviously two ways to work around that. Positioning up against the Magnus, and most importantly, that Fiend's Grip getting disables on it. If they get a Vacuum, a Disruption, a Split Earth on the Bane within the first second or 2 seconds of that Fiend's Grip, I think that RoX.KIS can take effectively any team fight that they aren't engaging on foolishly, but it's just about making sure they have the resolve to back it up, getting a Mechanism, Arcanes up as much as possible, and I feel that the next 4 minutes could bring at least 2 tower kills.
Friedman unit of 4 minutes. Yeah, the more I think about this Omni Knight, the more I like it, honestly. The one wild card here is RP, of course. If the RP grabs the Omni plus a couple people and they just bring them down, it's bad. But, on the flip side, the fact that the Omni is there is actually just lets them be so much more confident about these fights, because Dignitas put out so much of their damage as physical due to the fact that there's the Bear and Lifestealer, that a well-timed Guardian Angel just completely turns that all the way around. Because we sort of talked about the Gyro during the draft stage and how Gyro is actually okay just going up against Lifestealer, but then Lone Druid tips the scales. So you can't... When you put Gyro up against Lone Druid and Lifestealer, he's just too fragile. He'll die before he's actually able to deliver enough damage. And Omni is such a huge increase in the possible lifespan, like the time to live of that Gyrocopter. Between the Guardian Angel, between the... what's it called? What's the other thing called? Repel. He could just survive for so long, and he can stand and deliver, which is very substantial. Like, that's one set of flat cannon hits that Gyro doesn't have to worry about at all. He can make sure that they land. And I think in that situation, Buzz just feels so much better and less scared. And the other thing about Omni, the reason you don't see Omni is not because his abilities are bad. His abilities are freaking amazing. Is that you can never lane him. People want to use him as a support, but then he can't get levels, and he's just this incredibly level-dependent hero. But with the current trend of heroes that are actually bad mid, but work fine with Bottle Crow, Omni mid suddenly seems like a reasonable option. Like, he's only died once here, because Magnus is just a really, really soft mid when he doesn't, except for Bottle Crow. So this sort of opens up the opportunity for teams that want to run an Omni to run him mid, as long as they know that the other team is going to field one of those soft but for Bottle Crow mid heroes.
Yeah. So that is, I mean, kind of all this is, kind of strategic and tactical talk is kind of going on into who's going to win the next big fight, because right now in this position we've already talked about how RoX.KIS, their composition in general, sets up Gyrocopter to do a lot of things, but one thing we haven't even hit on at all is the Darkseer. I've mentioned him as far as his capability as a walking mechanism, but he's much more than that. He has a rank 3 vacuum with a great team to set it up. I really didn't... I feel like I completely neglected talking about this, but they first picked Darkseer, and I talked about how you can build a great team around him, and so they have. Flat Cannon, Call Down, I mean, an Omni Knight Heal Bomb. You think about Purification, a pure damage nuke that could deal 360 damage. I look at Bane's HP, he's sitting on 770. That's half his health right there. So good vacuum, heal timing, with a Split Earth, a Call Down, all this good stuff, and suddenly RoX.KIS just completely obliterate everything here. So
Sure, definitely.
They might not even have to worry about disabling the Fiend's Grip. They just go and kill the guy. I mean, a lot of burst, a lot of potential, and they are raring to go. So it looks like we're back in, and that's
Shoutouts to sponsors there coming out from Snake King, because the RoX.KIS, they were saying that he's trying to log in, but he has a crappy... it's a stronger word than crappy, but he has a crappy notebook that he's logging in from.
Nice.
And then Snake King says, "You wish you had an M17X from Alienware."
Nice.
So yeah, shoutouts to sponsors giving me free stuff.
Sweet. Shoot, one more thing. I had definitely one more thing that I wanted to cover, and for proceeding on to the follow-up engagements, but I don't know if it's going to be feasible now that we look at different things, and I'm just
They're a little tougher to chase, too, maybe, is what you're talking about. Like, Dignitas last game were just really big on the, we lost a fight, let's turn it around immediately and just chase them down. But RoX actually are a little tougher to chase this time, just because, I mean, they still have the Darkseer, but they have this Omni Knight that if you jump on him, he can actually turn that around very quickly, just because of his strong anti-magic, anti-physical damage abilities. So it's going to be a little tougher for Dignitas to just flip it on its side, in addition to the fact that they're slower now. They don't have the relocate, they don't have the puck.
Yep. That is definitely a very good point. One that I was thinking of as far as drafting goes is actually one thing that I feel Dignitas has kind of neglected in the past 2 games. It didn't really end up mattering in the previous one, but it's actually do see progression down. And with that Fiend's Grip pop, Biz is pretty much completely screwed. He's been farming nicely to this point. I mean, he's been stacking Ancients and farming down waves, but just finding a window of opportunity where they can rush on in. And of course, that is going to make him pay for it. No supports nearby is the big issue there. A single stun, changing that scenario completely. Even a Surge and a Mechanism, great, but that's still just now coming up for the Darkseer, and it's going to be a limiting factor here. We do see another stack.
Honestly, that was a big play from the with that Fiend's Grip, because you're talking about 2 Midas carries on one side, in the form of the Lone Druid and Lifestealer, and 1 non-Midas carry on the other side. So any time that Blaze spends... Blaze.
What?
That Business Perfect spends dead on this Gyrocopter is time that he's falling really, really far behind where the Lifestealer and Lone Druid are at.
Yeah, I'm sure you just associate me with
Big engagement mid, possibly.
Okay, Snake again going in and getting the skewer off onto the Darkseer, but he's already surged on away, so they're just kind of trying to deter them for this tower. Gets the denial, the siege creep hits it, and therefore setting up the Lone Druid to follow on through. Solo with that haste ring, though, has to get entangled if he's going to get shut down. You'll take his bits back and forth, but it's going to be Snaking that is taking too much here. The lightning goes down, but he still lives at 56 HP, and they turn things around. No reverse polarity up and available. The mechanism keeping up ROX, and they just can't die. They can keep on doing this. This has been like a 3 versus 4, and they still could care less. With all these cooldowns wasted, there's no way to bring down these guys.
This is such a frustrating team to play against. You land an entangle, they repel out of it. You land in open wounds, they surge out of it. So like Dignitas' abilities to keep you like standing, other than RP, just don't do anything. They can just, and honestly, Leshrac with repel is also super scary. We talked about how Gyro with that repel feels okay that he can just stay in for 12 seconds. What about Leshrac? Like, Leshrac, when he's, like, getting hype and actually doing a lot of damage, really wants to rush up that BKB. Again, he doesn't have to. There's a BKB on the board from this Omni Knight. Like, Omni is so good, and he's just solely held back, I feel like, by the fact that it's such a pain in the ass to figure out where to lane him. And if you can safely mid, suddenly Omni is pretty scary.
Yep. So we're seeing some 5v jungle action coming out from RoX.KIS. They want to make sure they get as much farm as possible. Very, very
They're raiding, Blaze.
Yeah, you know it. So, yeah, they're calling out, making sure that they're making sure the whelps are taken care of and locking them down nicely. So, yes, that's all the archaic references. That's the only archaic references I can really pull out for that one. So I'm gonna go for it. Anyways, so they're finding nice PvE opportunities to get a big gold sum up on Business Perfect. Moving in towards that Yasha, he's gonna be having a much better position here than he was the last time around. I was talking about durability and how he never really wanted to build towards any big items. Heck, he went for a butterfly after the BKB. So, sure, that gives him effective HP versus the physical damage, the right clicks, but as far as stayability against these big burst nukes, it's all going to be about the Omni Knight. And Mechanism, of course, adding on into that. I think that what they're doing is pretty much changing their strategy so that Business Perfect can just wreak havoc in the fights without any focus, item build-wise, on anything durable. He doesn't have to go for BKB. We've already highlighted that a lot, but honestly, like, you can imagine a 4 or 5 slot gyrocopter that's just going for Demon Edge type items. Suddenly,
no, just all Demon Edges. Forget type items. Just a grip of Demon Edges.
Yeah, totally casual, just striking them up and yeah, using that damage for Flat Cannon. Who knows? But either way, that is just setting it up nicely where Flat Cannon is going to be crazy output, and right now Dignitas doesn't have an answer for it. As far as their own support items, they're not going to have a mechanism, maybe this entire game. I mean, Jakiro is going to take a long time to pick it up.
Sooner or later.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying, but will they even get to that point? Like, they're going to be under pressure pretty early on.
Sure. So talk to me about this Vitality booster on Omni. Is this a heart to live through RP, or is it Atos 2000? I don't even know.
There's obviously 3 different options there. There is going to be a Bloodstone. He could disassemble the Arcanes technically for that.
He's not going to do that.
You know,
no way.
No, I mean, yeah, there's no mana burn or anything, so that's not really an issue. But he definitely, I think, at the very least, he wants the Vitality booster. I'm sure he has something in tension, but the big thing is the Vitality booster in itself. We do see, actually, down on... Where? Sorry?
Bottom.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything happening, though. It's just like...
Well, sorry, they almost killed Snaking, actually. Actually, this is going to be a fight, so...
Yeah, a lot of damage onto way too sexy. They go for the RP, hits it onto Yul alone, though, and so now it's going to be the Flat Cannon follow-up to bring down Snaking. Too much damage coming on through, so the Jakiro is going to be able to pick up the kill on the last track in return. But that was a couple of kills. They did get the Bane, they did get the... Magnus, and of course the RP was expended as well. So RX taking another really nice exchange, and I'm not really sure why Dignitas didn't rotate more to that position, other than the fact that they don't want the Lifestealer and the Lone Druid to be constantly playing defensively.
Yeah, I mean, they could have moved Lifestealer over, honestly. I'm not 100% sure. I think maybe they thought RoX was... After... who's actually playing the Bane this time? After Way Too Sexy actually nightmared the Leshrac, I think they thought RoX was just going to peel off. But they didn't, they actually pressed, and that was a big advantage for RoX, honestly. It's another tower, it's a little bit more map control, and Business Perfect lives comfortably, and he's got 2400. He's well on the way to his Manta if that's what he wants.
So, Universe in a little bit of an aggressive position. Because he has the Rage TP, though, I don't think he really cares what they throw at him. There's really not too much that he has to be concerned about. But now he's going to try to turn things around. We saw before, Way 2 and Universe together have a lot of potential for getting kills. However, they're very, very projected in their movements. They 100% RoX.KIS knows what's going on even without wards, and they're able to respond appropriately. So they have everybody back up together, and they're looking to push most likely. They have taken down tier 1s across every single lane, and they can easily bring down damage on the tier 2 aggressively together. Or Roche.
Good vision from Dignitas too, though. There, they knew that the gyro was coming to reinforce because of this ward up here in the top.
What do you think about Roche?
They'll get it. This is the one spot that Dignitas have no idea about. I think Dignitas will figure out that this is happening, but it's going to be pretty easy for RoX to bring this down. I honestly don't think Dignitas are going to go in for it. They do have RP in 10 seconds. It's only level 1, but I think they might be a little too late to actually contest it, even if they go for it. So smart by RoX.KIS. Roche for the Aegis for the gyrocopter is going to be fantastic. He actually, the grip of Demon Edges has begun. He's just as the Yasha, and he's picked up Demon Edge #1. We'll see how many he ends up with. Probably just, he's probably going to make them into items. But still, I mean, that's a free Roche, and Dignitas did nothing during that entire time. And this gyro, I mean, he doesn't have a Midas, unlike the 2 carries on Dignitas, but he does have higher net worth than either of them. So good job by Business Perfect so far.
But he kind of needs to. I mean, in that position, when you're going to have to worry about bashers coming out sooner rather than later, it's going to be putting yourself in a position where you're going to have a huge, overwhelming advantage of output. I mean, even if you go for lifesteal, like I said, those bashers will be pretty much the main focus of Dignitas, and it's going to make it more and more difficult to really hold against them, even with Repel. That's the one thing that I think Dignitas is going for them, is their composition with the lifesteal and the Lone Druid. If there's 2 heroes that can go pretty well anti-carry, just by changing up their item build a little bit, I think it's definitely those 2 with their high attack speed. And the entangles, the bashes, that's not going to be something that OmniNet can really do for him. Biz just kind of has to handle it in of himself. And presumably that means the butterfly. Presumably that means just trying to dodge out as much as possible. So even when you're taking 0 physical damage and you are immune to magic, that you're also not getting bashed up, so you can stand and deliver.
Eventually, yeah, I do think the butterfly will come out, but not for a while, I don't think. He's going to seek to make this Demon Edge into something and seek to make the Yasha into a Manta.
We do see Macrofire coming on down for counter push. They really, really want to try to delay this, but it's so difficult to do with even a rank 2 Edict just hammering on through. So this tier 2 is going to drop quickly. The reverse polarity is here, but just showing things. They have Invisible Magnus and an Infested Eggs, and they haven't gone in yet. That's just showing how far on the back foot they feel they are, and they're just going to draw the line at the tier 3s or on the mid.
They're just, Dignitas are playing a little bit nervously, honestly, and I'm not sure if they need to or not, but also that's because I kind of have no idea. Like, we haven't actually seen Guardian Angel being cast in this game, but its presence is sort of casting. Actually, Dread is in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, he does get the Surge out, the Skewer not going to help out, and the Double Split Earth, he is gone. They committed so much to that. The Invis Rune, I mean, that's not that big a deal, but the RP, the Infest, that would have been a sure kill on just about anybody else, but I was talking about this last game. Darkseer gets so friggin' big, and he has a Vanguard to back it up.
Yeah. Vanguard, actually, an item that's a little bit pooped on by a lot of people, but it helped quite a bit there. Aoi does have his Radiance fully done on the Lone Druid Bear. I don't know what the effect of that Radiance is going to be, honestly. It's not going to be that useful. I would have liked to see something anti-gyro on it, because that won't do anything to the gyro.
It's all about split push and counter push. If he can put the bear in a different lane, they can be doing what they did last game a little bit, where they're like, okay, well, you can do a 5-man in our base a little bit, but we're going to be putting pressure on towers that you just don't want to lose. So it is nice, but it's still...
But, yeah, that's not a lot, I feel like. And honestly, this Macropyre is just... I mean, it's such low cooldown that you don't mind using it. But again, now Buzz, again, he has the Repel, and they're just going to pressure a lot. And Dignitas are nowhere near, like, counter-pushing a tier 3 right now.
Yeah, going down in, they actually stun out the bear. This is a lot of damage to focus in, but if they can pick him off and put it... Oh, it's on cooldown. Oh, okay, I didn't realize he'd only just recently resummoned it.
Yeah.
Wow, that would have been a lot of damage to bring it down. Of course, he's just going to go and heal it up now, but do you remember what happened to bear #1?
Yeah, they actually used a Purge on it while they were pushing tier 2, and it died, like, right here.
Okay.
So they popped the Demonic Purge, which I think was a great move, and now, I mean, now it's on cooldown for a good long while. If they had gotten Bear 2, I think RoX would have actually popped the Guardian Angel and gone for tier 3s. I'm not 100% sure about this, but I feel like they would feel pretty comfortable doing that.
Yeah. I'm going to take the opportunity of the teams kind of splitting up and doing their own thing, and that mention of Purge to segue into something that I meant to talk about like 12 minutes ago, something like that. It was a little bit about the draft and about the composition that Dignitas is running. One mechanic I really feel that they're neglecting is the purge potential. They went up against a Warlock in the previous game, and that was picked up a lot earlier than the Omni Knight, so it's something that you could have actually drafted against. But we don't see anything as far as the Fusel Blade carriers. I mean, the only feasible one maybe was Nature's Prophet, and even then, that's kind of a stretch. So it just seems like they aren't really invested in going for Diffusal, whether to one-shot the Warlock Golem or to purge out all these amazing buffs that the Omni Knight can put up. It just seems like it might be a little bit of negligence on their part. I mean, they used to run a diverse lineup that could easily run Diffusal Blades. I mean, they've picked up Spectre before, but they already started off with the draft. Unfortunately, one thing that I have to cap this all off with is the fact that Omni Knight came out as the last pick. It's hard to draft against. And of course, they started off with the
Spectre. I mean,
Lone Druid and Lifestealer.
Lone Druid Spectre.
You know it. Just hard everybody carry, and you're all set. The late game is uncontestable.
Definitely. That's true as far as it goes.
As I say that, holy crap, Jakiro's going for it. Fogged is going for a Diffusal Blade on Jakiro. So never mind.
Yeah. Good call, Blaze. Wow. Yeah, I mean, smart, honestly. Honestly, first game, I didn't think it was quite as important just because Dignitas' strategy was to make sure Warlock never hit the levels that the Golems would actually just insta-kill them. So, in pursuit of that strategy, I don't think Diffusal was as important. But wow, yeah, Diffusal Jakiro, that's going to be a lot of farming. He's going to have to use Macropyre to kill creeps, I think.
The one thing I don't like about it is it pretty much shuts down their concept of picking up a mechanism ever.
True,
but
there will be no mechanism.
Yeah.
But honestly, Blaze, like, mechanism against Gyro, who's already farmed, is half an auto attack. Like, oh, we lived for one half of one auto attack. It's honestly an item that kind of tails off in effectiveness the later you go.
Yeah,
people don't talk about it, but it really does. It's only 250, or is that right?
Yeah, it's a 250 heal and an armor boost. And honestly, there will be actually a point in the game where the armor boost is more relevant than the healing just because of how much HP scales towards the late game. It's never going to be irrelevant, but it's going to be less and less high utility. Solo coming in, gets Fiend's Grip. Ow, this could be a big pickoff, but they go and actually get the Guardian Angel to come on out. So, popping off a big cooldown here. Solo has a Force Staff, but in his position, popping off that ultimate in response to the Fiend's Grip is very, very painful for him.
Sure. I mean, honestly, a good move because he would have been dead otherwise, and Dignitas could keep pushing. Actually, they're going to try for the bear, but I don't think they can get it. The Purge expired already. Is the degen enough? This is an interesting little matchup here. He gets out.
Yep. The Shadow Poison didn't get dispelled quickly enough, and man, the Rabid Bear is just so quick with those phase boots up, so it's not really...
Rabid Bear with phase is like, it's max movement speed, I think.
It is exactly that. And it's 500 without the buff, so, I mean, that's even substantial then.
That's pretty fast.
Yeah, I would say so. Looks like Leshrac is moving in towards some combo of Drum, Bloodstone, or Aghanims. Aghanims, I think, would be really powerful with the...
I would love Ags.
With the Repel, but of course Business Perfect is just as reliant, so they kind of have to make a choice. I've seen this kind of thing happen in previous Omni Knight games where they have like a Queen of Pain and a hard right-click dealer, and what they end up doing is just repelling the hell of the Queen of Pain, and the right-click dealer goes for the BKB. It does have a mithril component, and they are so familiar with picking it up that it works out that way anyways, but I definitely think one of the two are going to have to opt for it one way or another, but Business Perfect for the moment, just going for that Dominator.
Yeah, I mean, the Dominator, obviously, that's crucial at this point. Getting the lifesteal. Once Guardian Angel isn't up, and I mean, we're talking about a very, very big cooldown. Like, it's sort of like the Dread situation last game, where sure, you feel good when you have it, but when you don't feel good at all. So, Repel plus Helm of Dom plus Flat Cannon is... I mean, he's going to be gaining as much life as Lifestealer steals from him.
Dude, look
and
at
that's
mid.
part of what makes Gyro feel good about facing up against the Lifestealer, honestly, is he can just counter Lifesteal.
Check out mid lane, though. They smoked up the bear, and he just rains down without taking a single bit of damage. There's really nothing to be done about this whatsoever. Just
wow.
Committing that.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's really weird, but it works out.
That reminds me of, remember when people used to jungle Darkseer with the smoke, and Valve actually had to recode it so that monsters ran away because it was too good?
Yeah.
That's kind of what they're doing with this bear here. I like it.
Yeah, and it works out very, very nicely. Now, there is going to be the pressure from RoX.KIS, but they've already taken out Tier 2. They have to go for high ground, and meanwhile, when you're taking hits from your other towers and losing that permanent advantage, you kind of feel like it's a little bit of a... It's not sour grapes, but it's... trying to think of the right way to phrase it. Either way, it's ill-gotten gains. It's just you get in, you get some damage on the tower, but now we see the lone druid just hammering away. No problem at all. It's tier 2 dropping quickly. Fortification available, but they're gonna have to TP back here and pop the fortification just to keep it up.
What are you looking for an idiom for like when you try to get a victory but you don't?
No,
it's like a Pyrrhic victory or something.
More so that you get something, but at what cost? You know. Oh, Solo doing a lot of, you know it. Anyways, Owie dueling it out with Solo quite a bit. We do see the entangles coming out that can really screw over Solo, but he does get the heal off, and Leshrac at his back. Owie has the TP on out. Good TP, frankly, because he might lose. No, he won't lose the bear. It's too darn quick. But just in that position, there was nothing else that he could really do. But the Split Earth had already come on out, and it did save his life.
Such weird situations. Actually, Dread could be in trouble here. They're going to use the Fiend's Grip.
Yep, Fiend's Grip comes on out, and that is a really easy pickup on the Darkseer. No way to retaliate. The tier 2 has fallen. I was actually not denied. The Radiant got the kill with that Siege Scrape, so very strong. And the buyback from Darkseer. Lot lost.
He has to buy back.
RoX just lost so much there.
They did, honestly, but I think they thought Dignitas would pick up Roche if they didn't. So they had to buy back. Dignitas, again, great vision, just knowing everything. Both teams, honestly, warding up a ton of space, but I like Dignitas' wards on balance. I think they really understand exactly what RoX are doing. Like, you can see this big circle that they just made, because they know where Dread is. They know where they don't know where Business Perfect is. But Solo's going to get himself into trouble again. I honestly don't like, he's used Guardian Angel twice, and neither time has it mattered at all, except keeping him alive.
Yeah. Like, now we do see a big wall run in the vacuum. Huge damage come out. They don't have that RP, so the call down going to do a lot of damage, and it's going to be Universe just trying to shamble it out. Does get that infest off and blinks away. They lose the Jakiro, but they will keep just about everybody alive. Way Too Sexy is actually going to be the one that gets dropped down. Big crit coming out from Biz, cleaning up the second support, but everybody else will survive.
They're going to go for Roche now, and Dignitas, do they have buyback on this Bane? No, they don't. I don't know how good their position is to actually contest this Roche.
They don't have
I think
one.
This is Rox's.
Yeah.
These fights are such teases, Blaze. Nobody dies.
Yeah.
We're at 12 kills in 28 minutes. That's a W ratio of, like, I don't know, like 0.3?
Yeah.
Not enough kills. But I get it. I mean, Omni's hard to kill, and he makes your team hard to kill. And then Dignitas are just so fast. They've got all these blinks, and they've got magic immunities and bears and stuff, and they're hard to chase down, too. So both teams sort of, like, playing keep away from each other successfully, possibly to the detriment of our viewers that like to see big kill games. But still, a very interesting, tense game, but certainly not a bloodbath like the first one.
Exactly. It's very opposite end of the spectrum, but it's still entertaining in its own right based on the fact that they're just playing these completely different styles. I mean, they have completely different objectives, they have completely different intentions, and right now Dignitas is all about turtling up, but the pressure is always there. RoX has been hitting every single lane very hard, and the only thing really stopping them is bear activity. They're going to see up on the top lane, he's going to even creep skip just to burn them down, but he has to recall it soon because there is going to be this 5 versus 5, or should I say 6 versus 5 engage with the Aegis of the Immortal, and now that rank 2 Guardian Angel is back up and available.
Flak Cannon is just blasting away at these heroes. I mean, Way2 just had to run away straight up just from the flak. Big thing on the bear. Yeah,
bear taking out huge damage. That Split Earth is going to lock him down, and that is one dead bear. Having to resummon that is not going to be good for Owie, especially if he himself dies in the fight. Whether or not the bear does survive, that is going to be its death for quite some time here. Now doing some nice Radiance damage, but still taking a lot of damage back and forth. The Rax losing a lot, but the Enfeeble negating some of the damage from Biz. Another stun out on the bear. They are looking for a window, but Dignitas just keeps on being battered down. Suppressing fire from that Flakin, and Way2 can't even get close for a Fiend's Grip.
Nice
now coming in, Universe jumping on through onto Yol, trying to burst him, but there is going to be that force step to keep him up. They go for the single RP onto Biz, but here comes the Guardian Angel. The wall of Replica, he can't drop. Oh, so much damage coming in. They do actually finish him off, but he still has that Aegis. Way2 committing everything to that. Now snaking back up out of the disruption, trying to accomplish something, but it's Universe on the front end. Defensive disruption onto Solo. He has the heal to follow it up, and they will be able to fall back here. Nobody going to fall. It's going to be Universe as the same target, and he gets away as well. They are just diving under every tower, and look at how Omni is keeping everybody up. Biz now kind of by himself. Oh, that was bad from Universe. Oh my gosh, Biz flat hitting down everything. Triple kill for him, and he walks away still alive after all that mess. Oh my gosh. One thing that was a little bit missed. Well, I definitely caught it, but anyways, on the low ground, chasing down the Omni Knight. A single flat cannon shot went that 1,000 range, almost on the cusp of it. And from there, he was able to get 3 kills simultaneously. He finally, that war of attrition went on through, and that threshold was pushed over, getting all 3 of them pretty much simultaneously. And that's how it works when Omni can keep them in the middle of their friggin' base for that extended period of time.
That fight was like an hour long, and nobody died until the very, very end. And then all of a sudden, like, bam, 3 people down. And at that point, you say, oh, I guess RoX.KIS won this fight because they killed 3. And they did kill the melee racks and all that action as well. I like what Dignitas did, honestly. They played patient. You can't just rush in against the Gyro who's in sort of the peak of his damage. You have to wait until the right moment. And I honestly think they did. Like, they fortified right when the melee Rex was in trouble, and Lifestealer jumped in and started dealing damage. But great defensive play from RoX.KIS, honestly. The Force Staff from the Omni did a lot of work. It saved Yul's Leshrac immediately from Universe. And Universe was kept having to look for different targets. And as he was running around, you know, trying to kill people, but Biz was there, just like, whatever, I'll just stay in place and stand and deliver. And we talked about the fact that he can do that because of Repel.
More pressure on the bear. They're going to be able to purge that up. Medallion doing work here. And yeah, they're even doing a little bit of pathlock action to bring it down quickly. It's not going to fall, but it is going to take so much damage. It guaranteed has to fall back to the base here. And yeah, of course, that's not where Owie, he wants to have it out in the active of the field. And as fast as it may be, running back and forth to and fro is making it so that he can't really participate in this top engagement or put pressure out on other lanes whilst it's going on. So it's pretty much going to be 4-man on the tower, fortification available, and they're going to contest it.
They need a cuirass really, really badly, Dignitas. They need more armor to deal with this this gyrocopter. And even armor might not be enough at this point, but it's the closest thing they've got. So Owie, he really needs that bear to get a lot of money so he can rush the cuirass on it.
Sure. It definitely would benefit them substantially. We do see a blink away with that infest active, and it's going to be a TP on out. So everybody is engaging nicely. It does force everybody from RoX.KIS up, and when you're defending, you're not farming, and so it does delay a little bit for Biz. But really, this game is going longer and longer. Yeah, I guess that favors Dignitas because they do have Empower and Reverse Polarity, 2 great late game capabilities. Lifestealer is getting better and better items, Bash and attack speed, and like you said, that AC could do wonders for them. But as hilarious as it seems, I think a deciding factor in a follow-up engagement is if Fogged has that Diffusal Blade available or not.
It could be big to burn down. If you can get rid of Repel, that is honestly huge. But I feel like without the Diffusal Blade and without the Cuirass, they're at a pretty big disadvantage. Because what's to stop Buzz from just, winning? He does have that Butterfly. He has the Helm of Dom. He does so much damage.
Yeah, there's some Enfeeble action, which is limiting him a little bit. But yeah, he's going to have to evade very, very nicely. No, they go for the RP in full on top of him. Guardian Angel will come out as well. Nice vacuum in the wall. They go for the call down as well. Too much damage going across, and Biz is perfect. Will turn things around. The bear to fall, at the very least. Shakiro as well. And now Universe doesn't really have any ground to stand on. Is going to fall back on in, and the tier 3 will be dropped down to Biz despite continuous Enfeebles back to back on to Biz. He's just going to batter down on the racks, and that's the second rack, so they cannot really afford this. But they're going to obviously try to stick it out here, and Tangle Proc does come out on Yul. A lot of damage going across. He gets forced half away, and a nice Split Earth as well. Wow, they just want to keep him alive, and they're very well succeeding. Lone Druid does not have that bear summon, so that might just be it. I mean, that is a long time without effectively that carry, and now Universe in the middle of things, but you just can't do anything.
They just can't kill anyone because the entangle doesn't matter because you either get repelled out of it or force staffed out of it. The open wounds doesn't matter because you get surged, and just, my god, they can't break through this Omni Knight. Whatever they do, he just stops. Like, I honestly thought Gyro was dead because I was like, oh, well, he doesn't have Aegis and he just got RP'd. But then he's got the Repel and he gets the Guardian Angel, and it's like, like he's sitting inside of a Macropyre with a Lifestealer and a Lone Druid Bear on him and taking 0 freaking damage. The Omni with the Gyro is just so good because that stand and deliver factor that, like, God, they need that Diffusal, man.
They do. They really, really do. Because that's the huge difference between a dead Gyro and a living one. I mean, if you think about that first engagement, if you didn't have that Aegis in the mid lane, then they wouldn't have been able to take as much as they did. They wouldn't have had melee racks. They wouldn't have followed it up with a triple kill for him. He just would have been dead in the grave. But in this situation, they're getting more and more durable on everybody. With that Butterfly now, it means that even without Guardian Angel, he's still friggin' hard to bring down. So adding in all those things together, and without a Diffusal, Biz is 100% invulnerable. You just can't touch this guy.
Yeah, I mean, forget Aegis of the Immortal. He's just literally immortal, and it's a stunningly tough thing to fight against if you're Dignitas. Look at that solo with everybody else away from him, not solo the player, but solo by himself.
Oh.
He forces the fortify immediately, and Dignitas now have no fortification to play with.
Which is big when you have only one Rax in mid, the ranged one, and then you have only the both down and bottom. So this is in a position where they are really just kind of hanging on their last legs, but without fortification. It's going to be rough. And yeah, GA just now coming up. They're ready to go. I was talking about a relentless push. As long as they have Arcane Boots to sustain, they can keep on going for pretty much the next 10 minutes. They'll stop for Roche. That's about it.
It's do or die for Dignitas right now. If Mega Creeps come out, they have absolutely no way of dealing with
Diffusel's
them.
up on Jack. I think he sold something for it, to be honest.
Smart, honestly.
Whatever it is. He only has boots and a freaking diffusal blade, but if he can use it right at the right time on Biz, it won't matter. Flak ain't doing a lot. Nice. They do get, holy crap, that big RP, doing a lot of damage. Skewer across, they already did the Infest. A lot going across, there's the Guardian Angel, going with the Fiend's Grip onto Biz. He's getting healed up. He was, I believe, dispelled, but either way, he's just hammering out too much damage. Day Dallas, Butterfly, just tearing apart, and that is going to be the death of the lifesteal as well as setting up Business Perfect for an ultra kill here, and that's going to be 100% uncontested good game.
That's it. Honestly, the GA didn't even land on Business Perfect, which I was really worried about, but I shouldn't have worried because Lifestealer wasn't there. He was on the stack of supports trying to kill them. And so GA only needed to hit the people that Lifestealer was actually on. It didn't need to hit Gyrocopter because he was only facing magic damage. Oh my god, Dignitas really tried, honestly. They played well with what they had, and that last fight I think just a little bit too late. The Gyro too big already to actually deal with, but they played their hearts out, and I don't like to say teams got out-drafted, but Omni Knight, man.
Dude, strong pick. And the situation, you were talking about this early, is the issue with Omni is his lanes, but a Magnus isn't going to control anybody that hardcore. In a 1v1, a beefy melee versus beefy melee, Magnus is going to just maintain the status quo. He might do a little bit better because he has so much harassment potential with Shockwave, but you invest a little bit more in consumables, you use your bottle well, suddenly Solo is completely well fortified on that mid, and he got the experience, he got the gold he needed. Once they had bottle Arcane Boots, they didn't even go for Magic Wand. Oh, actually, he eventually did, but it took him a long time because you're not up against that much spell spam. But anyways, he was able to help them out in a bunch of different ways, gain momentum, and mid to late game Omni Knight is unquestionably good.
Sure. I do love, this is great because I love the opportunity to see Omni where you're like, oh, he was really, really good. He participated in the fights so much, and then you look at the scoreboard and he's 1-1 and 2. Because the way that the game computes assist credits is that you actually had to have dealt damage. And your heal, it's tough to actually make sure that it's always hitting people. So if you heal and repel and Guardian Angel and degen everybody, you still get no assists for that entire fight. So it's like, oh, was this just a trash Omni Knight that was like, just didn't do anything? And it's like, no, he actually was everywhere he needed to be all the time.
Yeah, it's important to note that that does kill credit for the scoreboard, but it doesn't actually change whether or not he gets gold.
Yes,
gold is about proximity, and he was in the action most of the time, so he got plenty of assist gold. But as far as that KDA, yeah, it looks pretty hilarious. Sitting at 1-1 and 2, Omni Knight, completely low team fight participation. He might as well just been farming jungle the whole time because he just could not possibly be our MVP. But all jokes aside, he performed very, very nicely solo. Doing so well in that Omni and setting it up so that Gyrocopter Leshrac, everybody could do all that they wanted.
God, that did so much work for them, and it was actually it's funny that Biz eventually did pick up a BKB just for his 6th slot, because sometimes you repel the Leshrac. Yeah, I mean, we can't talk enough about that, and it really is that factor of there's these heroes. You always have to ask, like, there's a bunch of heroes that never get picked, or they get picked very, very infrequently. And there's always a good reason why, or there's usually a good reason why. And for Omni, it's always, well, we know he's strong, but you never get the levels to actually make him strong. And as soon as the meta opens up a position where you actually can play him and get him levels and make him effective, he just shows off his abilities immediately. Right there, he just was so valent. And even just the repel, just repel and heal for a long period of time, because the first 2 Guardian Angels were not tremendously meaningful. They were both to save himself from an angry bear. But when the Guardian Angel finally did start hitting the field in concert with the repel, it let them high ground. It looked so easy. High ground fights are usually 10 seconds and everybody on the map is dead, right? And in those high ground fights, it was 2 2-3 minutes later, it's like, okay, if somebody eventually has to die, right? Like, this is Dota. These teams are shooting each other. But that's what an Omni makes. That's the sort of fight that you end up in.
Yeah, and one thing to mention is they really couldn't focus to disable the Omni Knight instead to kind of negate his potential. I already talked about how they didn't have silences, but also Bane. You throw out a Nightmare, it's such a short range, and when you have Flat Cannon just standing delivering and the Bane only has a magic wand to survive, level 13 versus level 20, you're going to not even survive through the single Flat Cannon. I mean, the Enfeebles were good, they were a relatively good range to get it off every time, but Omni Knight was always in a good position to avoid those disables and get his spellcast off over and over and over again, and just kind of just closed on in for the kill here. This 38.5-minute win for RoX. They really performed it well, drafted nicely, and I really think that it was the draft that opened it up for them. There were no natural dispels, and as far as lane presence, Bane and Jakiro are nice, but they aren't as very mobile as far as transitioning to gank on the mid, and from there, a uncontrolled lane is something that an Omni Knight can break wide open. So there we go. That is the story. And from here, we're going to go on to Game 3. This is a best-of-3 series with RoX answering back to make it a 1-1. And we'll be seeing which team will be taking the match in this next game here. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Very fun to catch for you guys. And very interesting game so far. So we'll see what happens in the next one.